Hi, everyone. We're back. We're finally back from India. We had a wonderful time. We have some folks here who were able to join us on that adventure. And just a week ago, we were having our own adventure visiting the Taj Mahal. So I'm still kind of jazzed up about that experience and can't wait to share more pictures that I have on my Facebook. But in the meanwhile, I'm your host, Noor
Meanwhile,
Kyle.
and I am her loyal sidekick, Mushtaq Ali.
And thank you for joining us for another Sunday talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. It has been a couple of weeks since we last got together, and that means we got to get back into our routine. And we can start by doing our YouTube spiel, I suppose, right?
Why not?
Ah, the YouTube spiel. So, thank you for supporting us. And sometimes that means showing up live here with us, as many of you fine folks have. Often that means watching our YouTube video and then liking the video if you enjoyed it, if you got something out of it, even if it just made you think a little bit harder than you normally do. Leave us a comment, join the dialogue, ask questions, maybe offer some answers, share our stuff. That helps too. And many of you do that, and we appreciate it. And of course, subscribe to our channel, help us reach more people. If you find this information useful, then it's likely that there are more people out there who would feel exactly the same way. And you can donate to our channel, which we will be talking about today, won't we, Mushtaq?
Yes, we will. How about now?
Right now, go for it.
Right now. So, today inaugurates our annual fund drive, not fund drive, but fund drive, where we ask you, as politely as we can, to send us a little spare change so we can keep this thing going. We work entirely on your donations. And the reason for this is we want to provide the content of this channel free. We don't want advertisers. We aren't going to take on sponsorships or anything like that. You're never going to get a commercial from us for some food package that you can order on the interwebs. But we do ask if you can, and if you have a little disposable income, to perhaps send a little bit towards us. We would be greatly appreciative. All of our bills are coming due again. We've got to renew our various internet things and stuff like that. And it will help us keep going. So if you enjoy our content, then, you know, help us out here. If you don't enjoy our content, what are you doing here? But if you don't enjoy our content, send us money and maybe we will steal it and flee to Casablanca and start a nightclub.
And then you'll never hear from us
You'll never
again.
hear from us again.
Yep. So you'll find links to do that in the description, along with links to our email list, which I totally recommend you join, as well as our Facebook page and Facebook group, which I'd also
And
recommend you join. Yeah.
I'm going to, as a treat for you today, before we get started, I'm going to tell you a little fun story from our India trip, which pleases the hell out of me and will probably embarrass Nora a little bit. But it is um, it's one of the things your money goes to. So we're at the Taj Mahal, and it's amazing. It's beautiful. It's the the amount of work that went into that place, the aesthetics of it, all of that are uh, beyond words.
Insert like immeasurable.
Yeah. And so we are going through this tour. We have our very own tour guide just for us, provided by the people who arranged the trip, which we will say more about later in other places, because if you go to India, you need to know about these people. Anyway, we go into the Taj itself. Now, the outside is spectacular. The inside is a little different because there are no lights. It's
At least
dark.
at our time, the
Yeah,
lights weren't on.
there
Yeah.
are no lights. And the Taj is, there's a series of domes, and we were in the inner dome. And the acoustics there are amazing. Paul Horn, when he heard a famous flute player, arranged to actually record an album there because of the acoustics. So there are people in it, and basically what you're hearing is this susurrus of whispering and sounds and everything. And there's a guy there who, for a couple of bucks, would demonstrate the thing. We're totally in the dark. And after we go through the whole demonstrating, we're standing in the shadows, and out of nowhere, Noor cuts loose with the opening lines from the Quran, the Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in her amazing voice, hit every note as if angels were singing it. And you could hear this echoing. The sustain from the dome was just amazing. And it was from this to total silence. All you could hear was the hairs on people's arms raising. Nobody knew who it was who did it. And then she snuck out quietly, but she left that in the dome. And that was the high point of my trip to the Taj Mahal. Was
Aw,
that moment?
thank you, Mushtaq. I mean, at that moment, I think you're not supposed to do that, first of all. I broke the rules.
Oh,
But
imagine that.
as is my MO much of the time. But in that moment, I mean, I felt that it was a holy place. So much love and inspired genius had gone into the formation of this incredible monument. And as our student Alka put it, and I hadn't thought of it that way. I was just kind of following I guess we could say the intuition or the inspiration rising up, but she described it as like a mosque to love. And that resonated for me as soon as she said it. And I was like, maybe that's what was welling up in me, a sense of connection to that. But I feel humbly that in that moment, you know, in the Taj Mahal, I guess you could say, had a shared moment together. And a part of me is left there, and a part of it is left with me. And that's quite a thing to say and to feel. So, yeah, that story is a little embarrassing, but I appreciate you sharing it, Stock. Thank you.
Yeah. And that's if it weren't for the fact that y'all donate to us and keep us going, we would have never been able to do this, and the Taj would have never heard Noor's voice, and we would have never heard Noor's voice. And if you go to the Taj now and listen very, very carefully, the vibrations of that voice are still going to be in the dome. They never stop.
I hope everyone gets to be there and have their own taste of what I felt someday, God willing. So
So
thank you.
there we are. There's a
Mhm.
little encouragement. So, what are we doing today?
Oh goodness, we are tackling the perennial topic, aren't we, Mushtaq?
Yes, we are.
So we are talking about The War on Sleep. That is our title today.
Yeah, which is admittedly a title that I stole from Colin Wilson's uh, book, a biography of Gurdjieff, which he called The War on Sleep. But
Cool.
it's such a good phrase. He won't mind. He's dead.
So before we get deep into our topic today, Zach offers that there's a surah from Yasin at the entrance of the Taj.
Yes.
It's incredible. I can't wait to share pictures. Yeah,
Yeah, I have pictures of some of it. It just goes up and over and down and looks absolutely
spectacular.
beautiful. And
The
it's not painted.
engineering
It's
involved.
inlaid in semi-precious stone.
Yes. And a small tidbit, they elongated the letters so that when you gaze up at them from below, everything looks uniform as opposed to the proportions being shifted by perspective.
Yeah.
So, so much thought went into this incredible work of art. All right, onward, sleep,
Onward.
war, huzzah.
So what do you want to say about it, Noor?
You know, the metaphor of war is not one that I would typically choose, but I had been thinking about this in terms of the idea of sleep and just how challenging it is to overcome our patterns and to shift our ways of engaging with the world to from ways that are so self-defeating and ultimately harmful to ourselves and others to ways that are enriching not only for ourselves but for the world at large. And it's unspeakably difficult. So the word war, to kind of, proclaim a war on sleep, I think we find that that ultimately makes sense
Yeah.
in many ways.
And if we use the more appropriate word, it would freak people out. So, because the proper word for this is jihad.
Yeah, ooh,
Jihad does not
scary.
mean war. It means struggle. And in this world, there is a constant struggle against the sleep of the machine.
Hmm.
Culture and civilization are designed by their very nature to keep us asleep. Perhaps somewhere in the world there has been a culture um, in the last few thousand years that has not been designed to keep us asleep, but I don't know where it would be. And when I say civilization, I'm talking about what made us civilized was the agricultural revolution when we started um, sitting in the same spot and growing crops. Once we did that, everything changed. So much so, Gurdjieff called this event the catastrophe not according to law, by which men were only capable of living more or less comfortably as masters and slaves. It's a lot of words, but there was a major change in how people lived, moving from hunter-gatherer societies to agricultural societies, with all of the inherent problems of that. And we have been devolving ever since. I ran across an example. We had a 22-hour flight back, all told. And so there was a lot of listening to audiobooks. And there was one I was listening to that was talking about the Lincoln Douglas debates. You know the Lincoln Douglas debates, yeah, Abraham Lincoln and I forget which Douglas it was or what, but his opponent who lost and is lost to the memory of Americans everywhere. Um, they had a debate, and Douglas started the debate, and he went on for 2 hours nonstop. And it wasn't 2 hours of insults and talking points. It was 2 hours of well thought out, well crafted um, exposition of his positions. At the end of this 2 hours, Lincoln said, you know, everybody's probably a little bit tired. Let's take a break so you can go home, have some dinner, and we'll meet back here and I will give my rebuttal to this. And everybody went out, did whatever they did, and they all came back. This was a packed hall. And Lincoln went on for 2 hours himself with the same kind of um, very well thought out discussion of his policies and positions and the whys and wherefores of them. And then Douglas got another hour to rebut Lincoln. So 5 hours, 6 hours with a dinner break or a lunch break. That could never happen today. Think about it. Can you think of somebody who would sit at a debate for 5 hours listening to two candidates discuss positions? They'd all be on their phones, right? Or falling asleep. What does this tell us? Does it tell us anything?
I see Todd nodding his head. What comes to your mind, Todd? There you
What
are.
comes to my mind is that increasingly, especially over the last 200-300 years, there's been a systematic effort to lower people's attention, lower their awareness, and lower their ability to and reduce their ability to concentrate for any length of time on anything except assigned tasks that serve the masters.
Yep. Yeah, we can measure things like brain size between today and 100 years ago, 200 years ago. That's fairly easy to do. You just get skulls and look at them. But it's a little bit more difficult to measure attention span. But we can infer from what people did and how they did it that attention span has been shrinking over the last 150 years. And it has taken a huge leap in shrinkage in the last 50 years to the point where, in my humble estimation, most people have the attention span of a gnat.
Zach has a comment.
Yes, Zach.
It's more of a question.
Sure.
I see it as throughout evolution, we've been developing a mix of breadth and depth when it comes to our attention span and ability to execute across tasks. But for one reason or the other, we just started creating way more information that for everyone else to follow, they need to increase their bandwidth. And so they increase their bandwidth at the detriment of their ability to go deeper. And so in a way, it solves for a common problem, but which is everyone is creating so much information, which means everybody else needs to consume as much information in order to keep the network running. But at the same time, the detriment of the personal ability to go deeper is the cost to pay.
Yeah, and I would suggest that by at least my definition of information, we don't create more information. We create more data. But
Content, quote unquote.
yeah, information, as I define it, is the amount of novelty contained in a communication. What is new? What is what is it that you have not experienced yet that this communication gives you?
Aaron says tasty snacks versus nutritious meals.
So what we see, if I'm not being totally skewed by what I see, is that we don't get much information. We get a lot of data, and the data regurgitates what we already think. There's,
Well,
there's an actual reward mechanism. And yes, Todd, that's right. That is the straight up information theory definition. And
yeah, I was just going to
thank
share that with you that you are corroborated by
yeah, that's
the
where I got
information
it.
theory
I
definition.
love
So,
information theory. And that is the definition that makes more sense to me than any other. You all understand, right, what that means? If I
yeah.
say to you, roses are red, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, and so are you. Everybody knows where I'm going with that. There is no information in that little doggerel poem. If I use the comedian's roses are red, violets are blue, you think this is going to rhyme, but it ain't gonna. There's a little bit more information in that. The more novelty, the more that you have not yet experienced that is contained within the communication is the amount of information it actually covers. We no longer want information. We want narcotization as a culture. We want signals being sent into our brains that reinforce what we already believe. And I don't care what it is you believe, right, left, up, down, forward, backwards, whatever. We all have our preferred reinforcements. So if you're one kind of person, you want the signals that tell you that um, everybody is out to get you, that everything is rigged, that Trump won the last election, all of that kind of stuff. And you just want to be told that over and over and over again. And I would submit to you that that is a form of hypnotic induction. And Todd, who somehow got hold of my notes, um, go
I'll
ahead and
read
read
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is a very salient point. Todd says, at the same time that we are increasingly asleep in a mental and spiritual sense, we are on a worldwide level getting less of the real sleep, the literal physiological sleep we need in order to be awake and to function.
And this is also true. And that is a way. Okay, if I wanted to brainwash you guys, one of the things I would do is not let you sleep, physically sleep. I would keep you up. I would play loud music at night. You know, I would be playing uh, 1940s Lawrence Welk polka music. Yeah,
Sweet Jesus.
because that will make you more vulnerable to um, every sort of influence.
That's classic sleep deprivation as a
Yeah.
torture tactic.
And one of the other torture tactics that are very popular is what they call stress positions.
Ooh, ugh.
Yeah, in Guantanamo and Abu Ghraib and places like that, they would hold chain people up to the walls and make them squat in weird ways. Today, we just make you sit in front of a desk.
I mean, before you took it to such a dark level. I was gonna say, you know, those plane rides we were just on,
Yeah,
stress positions,
those were
slightly
stress
torturous.
positions, slightly
Yeah.
torturous, not as bad as some other things, but almost all of you, almost every day, find yourself in stress positions and you don't move from them. It's almost as if you were chained there. Now, our premise is that today's culture is designed to keep you asleep. Not like there's, lizard men from wherever lizard men are from. I forget where they're supposed to. Oh, yeah. The constellation Draco. Yeah. I don't think that there are lizard men, but I'm pretty sure that culture has evolved in a mimetic way to pretty much naturally anesthetize people. The only way civilization functions today is if most people are asleep most of the time. Think about that. If the population of China woke up and saw what was really going on there, they would all walk away. Yeah, Aaron mentions the film Brazil. Yes, people should watch that film.
I have not seen that film, I'll be
We
honest.
will we will fix that for you.
Yeah, but Aaron describes, he mentions the phrase comfortable dystopia.
Yep.
That sounds like home, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, if we want to get if we want to know reality, if we want to know the awake truth, we need to find a passion within ourselves for awakening that is like going to a just war. Think World War II, where nobody wanted to go, everybody went because you knew that you had to. The consequences otherwise would have been too terrible to imagine. The consequences of your sleep are too terrible to imagine, but most of us are not connected to that. And the first step to waking up from the sleep of the machine is to realize that you are trapped in that sleep. And it is a complete and utter battle to get out of it. That's the very first step. And you have to be able to hold that because civilization will lull you back to sleep. I love the metaphor of the Hindu goddess Maya, who is the goddess of illusion, the goddess of sleep.
She got a lot of mention in the past couple weeks,
Yeah,
given
because we
that we
were
were,
hanging out in her home turf.
yeah, exactly. Where she is someone who is very much in the ether as a figure.
Yes. And so, without that burning desire to wake up, you won't. You won't wake up. If you just think, oh, it would be nice if I woke up. I'd like to be awake for a little while, but my favorite TV show is going to come on. And it won't work for you. So, when you find within yourself the burning desire to awaken, what do you do? I recommend fasting, not just from food, though. Short fasts from food definitely wake me up. Fast from your electronics. Spend a week without your cell phone, without your computer, without your television set, without your radio. If you're really crazy, spend it without books. The Geneva Convention says making somebody sit in a room without any stimulus is a form of torture. I think the Geneva Convention says that. If they don't, they should. But for some of us, it is not a form of torture. It's an antidote to the toxicity that we have developed.
Relief,
Yeah.
even.
Well, first you go through the withdrawal.
Yeah. I mean, now that you mention it,
Yeah. So in order
yes.
to do this, you need some skills. You need the skill of self-observation and the skill of self-remembering. And you need to be able to breathe. Those three things are what you need to successfully begin to detox yourself from the myriad methods of anesthesia that culture has for you. Self-observation allows you to observe the machine and how it works to keep you asleep.
So,
Self-remembering is being awake.
yeah, and it allows you to watch all those twistings and turnings that come up around, as you mentioned, Mushtaq, withdrawal,
Yes.
craving, uh, frustration, perhaps, boredom is another one, even if you're not really feeling particularly upset about choosing to deprive yourself. You may be like, oh my God, what am I going to do with this time otherwise? All of that is the machine at work.
Yep. Boredom is one of the things. I remember to this moment clearly the day that I stopped being bored. It was, those things where the door opens up and you get the light and you look through the door and there's like beautiful fields of flowers and stuff. It was like that, only metaphorical.
Mhm.
But you have to be comfortable being with yourself, and people aren't. And if you think that you are comfortable being with yourself, sit in meditation alone for a day, and that will tell you.
Mhm.
So, those three things, muhasebe, murakabe, and breathwork, are your initial tools for fighting the sleep of the machine.
So you all remember how breath work comes into play, right? That's what allows you to stay grounded in your body instead of spinning out into whatever mental and emotional dramas you might create for yourself in the process of sitting with those uncomfortable feelings. At best, it feels like an itchy tag that is just constantly just a little bit irritating. But at worst, it can be like you want to claw your own face off. You're so frustrated with the way that you have wired yourself up to be so addicted to stimulus, narcoti narcotizing stimulus. And breath work helps you come down to earth again in the face of those things.
Ed has a question. Lay it on us, Ed.
You gotta unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Holy mackerel. all types of obstacles was in the way of trying to unmute myself. But in any event, there's a couple of things that came to mind. You mentioned the three things: the observation, self-remembering, and there was a
Breath work.
breath work.
Yes.
Can you give an example of self-remembering? And also, what did you mean by stressing, the posture stressing? I think I understand what you're saying, but I just want to be clear.
It's that last bit is a form of what they now call enhanced interrogation, which is a pretty way of saying torture. One way that governments torture people is to put them in what are called physical stress positions. Um, a box in which you can neither stand nor lie is one, and leave them in there for hours, or no way that you can get in any position that gives you any relief. That's what I mean by that. It's a pretty nasty thing to do to anybody. And we do it to ourselves.
And it wears us down.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how we spend hours sitting at a desk all day, hunched over, whether that's for work or for play or
Or
for
sitting in
both.
a car, or sitting
Yeah.
uh, on the subway.
Yes, and I thought that's what you was referring to, and it's interesting that you brought that up because just this coming week, um, I was sitting down and I noticed, and the awareness went to, oh, there is stress in your neck.
Mm.
And well, what if you move back this way? Oh, the stress is no longer there. So I'm seeing how these postures that we take can contribute to the stress.
Good. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Mm, that's what I thought you meant. And so, what I'm constantly doing, even right now, I'm adjusting my body because I'm noticing that habitually I've been sitting and doing things, and I'm moving out of that to relieve, to bring the flow of energy and to be much more relaxed in the body. But at first, I had to become aware that okay, the stress is there. That was the first part for me. Oh, was becoming aware that it was there because all along it was there for God knows how many months, days, or whatever you want to say. It's been there, but the awareness wasn't there. But as soon as the awareness was there, that's when the light bulb opened up. It was like,
Yeah.
whoa, okay.
Hmm.
Now, here's an insidious thing. So I have stress in my neck.
Mm,
Oh, I have stress in my neck. And I move it so the stress is no longer there. And it feels good. And I relax. And the moment I relax, I go to sleep. And then I get stress in my neck again because it's a habitual posture. And I will naturally go into it if I'm unconscious. And then I have to wake up again and go, oh, stress, relief, stay awake. You do that enough times and you will eventually catch on to the insidious part of that process that allows you to go back to sleep, and you won't do it.
yes. Wouldn't self I noticing that wouldn't attention be part of that process? You mentioned the self-remembering, self-observation, and there was a third
Breath.
breath, right?
You keep forgetting that one. That means that's where you need to pay attention.
Ah, that's where the attention comes in now.
Yeah.
Clarity. When you're saying the breath, are you referring to consciously breathing as opposed to mechanically breathing? Is that what you're saying?
I am saying that there are techniques of breath that facilitate being awake. And we have given a couple of them out on this channel that anyone can do safely. For more advanced stuff, we got to do it one-on-one for people to figure out what will suit them as opposed to what will get in their way. But there are a few, like what we call the basic breath. Anybody can do that. And if you don't have anything else, just put your attention on your breath and breathe. Keep your attention on your breath as you do everything else. That's all breath has to be. And from that very simple attention to breath to very advanced, complicated exercises, it's a journey.
So there's all that. And you also mentioned self-remembering,
Yeah.
Eduardo.
Yes, self-remembering is basic waking practice. To have your attention on the world and on yourself at the same time. So it's both referential and reflexive. It's like right now, if I say to you, can you find yourself looking out through your own eyes? Can you find yourself listening through your ears? Can you find the self that is the witness to all of this? Now hold on to that and pay attention to the world at the same time. That's basically self-remembering. It's not hard or it's not complex, but it takes a minute to actually master it.
Yeah, and self-observation is kind of the foundation to that.
Yeah.
It seems like what you described, though, that self-observation and self-remembering are one and the same.
No,
Mm-mm.
I
no,
know
they're not.
they're
They
not,
are
but the
distinctly
description
different.
sounds like it to me.
Self-observation is the first person description of your experience without presupposition. And that's different than what I just described.
We did at least two videos,
Three.
one on self-observation, one on self-remembering a while back. This was like
Yeah.
a few years back, but if anyone is feeling like they want a deep dive into those topics specifically, we can, I guess, put links at the end of the video to those two
Would you,
examples.
Yep.
would you please? Thank
We
you.
would do that. And probably something on breathwork as well.
Okay, I will make a
Wonderful.
note.
Yeah. And Wael points out that there are about 5 talks on the topic.
That's what I figured. I
Yeah.
figured it would be more than one. One comes
Less
to
than
mind.
100.
There are others. You really just one thing you can do if you want many examples, as what Elle points out, is to do a search on our channel for like self-observation, self-remembering, that kind of thing.
On the YouTube channel?
Yep.
Yes.
It's the only channel we got.
Just want to be clear.
Yeah, we are YouTube centric
Yes.
for the moment.
I was gonna say, for the time being, that is the case. You never know.
Yeah. The civilization could collapse and we would have to go back to carving these teachings onto cave walls.
Sending you all messages in bottles.
Yeah.
Or smoke.
Smoke signals. Be awake.
Be awake.
All right. So the question is, can you find within yourself the passion that you need to move from the sleep of the machine to actual awakeness? Because without that kind of motivation, you ain't going to do it.
Yeah. And Aaron was asking earlier, what does the battle feel like? that's kind of what the battle feels like, is on the one hand, you have the struggle, as we have said, to be awake because the draw to be asleep is so strong. And on the other hand, you have this passion to continue that struggle to be awake. And those forces are going to push and pull, and one is going to have more strength over the other on any given day, given the circumstances of the moment. And we talked about being robbed of sleep, enduring physical stress. Those are things that are going to impact your ability to keep up the struggle.
Yeah. And aside from the whole self-remembering, self-observation thing, as we have mentioned also on numerous occasions, get enough sleep, eat well. And by well, I mean eat healthy food.
Yeah, eat wisely, even.
Yeah, wisely and well. Meditate. Have good companionship. Fast. Fast from food, fast from all forms of stimulation. You don't have to do it all at once. Pick a day where you don't touch your phone and then do self-observation for what happens. Now, when I was young, a phone was this thing that was wired into the wall, made out of black Bakelite. You didn't even have colors, you had black. And if you picked it up, half the time there would be somebody already talking on it because
Mm,
it would be what was called a party line.
yep.
And that means that none of us cared about our phones. I didn't even get interested in phones until I discovered girls. Then phones became more interesting. But even then, you had to figure out how to talk to a girl with a phone that was wired to the wall. You couldn't just go outside and there were no even radio phones. There were no cordless phones back then. So from that, where you could care less about your phone and you always carried a few dimes on you in case you needed to use a payphone, to now where we cannot do without that little square box in our pocket. And I have nothing against phones. I love my phone. It's incredibly useful. I have the world at my fingertips. I have the largest library on the planet in this little box.
And it's gotten us out of a couple of jams here and
Yeah.
there to have those.
Yep. But it's something that you cannot let control your life. And that's the insidious part of this. There is too much that we use to anesthetize ourselves. And we need to admit to ourselves that that's what we are doing. We are anesthetizing ourselves so that we can walk around in a state of spiritual somnambulance. You know that word, right? Somnambulance. It means sleepwalking. And it takes real effort to change that.
Real desire to change that.
Real desire, too. First comes the desire, then comes the effort.
What else is spiritual coffee?
Yes, almost as good as real coffee. Can't see there. There he goes. So what else are y'all thinking?
Zach says, we've gone past sleep and started dreaming our quote, capital S self, unquote, inside our devices.
Yes. So Ian just popped up his hand and somebody else did too.
Ian and then Ed.
Yeah. Ian,
Yeah,
how you
yeah,
doing?
pretty good.
You've been so
Actually,
quiet today.
well, it's funny. I'm actually a little sleep deprived for the last few days, but that be that as it may. I just wanted to make an observation about the the attitude, which I think is helpful in terms of this, and feel free to correct me if you have a different perspective.
Well,
But I
even if
think
we do, it doesn't make you wrong. So,
I think it's important to have the attitude that this is more of a marathon than a sprint.
Mm.
oh, damn right. You are totally 100% correct on that. I would love to argue with you, but we're going to have to find another subject to argue about.
That won't be too hard, but the day.
Yeah, you are totally right about that. This is a marathon. And Todd has written a comment that we'll read after Ed. Speak to us, Ed.
Um, I'm in agreement with what you're saying regarding you have to have that desire to move out of that sleep state. And I came to that conclusion some time ago. And for me, it was breaking that chain of habitual patterns. Some patterns in which, that had formed in me were uh, serving and some was not serving. And so I said, listen, how can I break out of these patterns which are no longer serving me? And the other was a deep desire to feel the connection with the whole or the universal mind. And I found that these sleep patterns was the block.
Mm-hmm. You are completely correct about that.
What I'm finding though is that the more that I'm in this awakened state, the more I can sense things and flow with things that would, in other words, it's like knowing without knowing. I just do certain things at times, and I'm not sure how was I able to do this particular function. But I'm finding is the more I go into the state that I'm able to do certain tasks and not intellectually know how I've done it, but I've done it, if that
It,
makes sense to you.
it makes total sense. Keep on doing that. Because as Ed points out, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint.
Ian. Ian mentioned that, yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
Ian, somebody mentioned that.
Meaning that it's over a long period of time. Is that what you mean by marathon?
Kind of, yeah, it takes a few miles.
Yeah, and you gain momentum over time as your adeptness at catching yourself being asleep increases. It becomes you become more skillful at navigating sleep and being awake, even when it's hard. But it's not going to be overnight that suddenly you're a success at staying awake 24/7. As we've talked about before, none of us actually would benefit from being awake 24/7. There has to be a time for rest. There has to be a time for rest in the sense of literally going to bed and laying your head on a pillow and snoozing for 6 to 9 hours. And also the form in which, you just watch a stupid TV show for an hour and allow yourself to relax into, I guess we could say, brain deadness, to recuperate, to recharge, to refuel your desire to continue.
Nora, what about being awake even though you're asleep?
You mean
Physically,
like in the sense of
physically.
lucid dreaming?
No, I had an incident that happened some years ago. Um, I was asleep and someone entered the room that had no business entering that room. And they were a distance away from me, and I immediately woke up and tuned into their thought patterns.
Okay, that's a slightly different thing, but
Mm.
it's good that you could do that. That's useful.
So my question is that can we still be physically asleep and yet be awake, aware of everything?
And the answer is maybe. I'm familiar with the phenomena that you're talking about. Noor will tell you if there is a sound in the house that doesn't belong there, I am immediately awake and usually going out to investigate with a machete.
Okay. Well, I will not be coming by there. But
Not
what,
after hours, yeah.
yeah, not after hours. But what I found was interesting with this situation with this person entering the room, they had bad intentions and I picked it up. They didn't make a sound or anything. It was just I just picked up their energy and I was like, okay. And I looked and they stopped.
Yeah. So be happy with yourself about that. That's a good thing. So let's take a look at what Todd said, because I think this is interesting too. Nor would you?
Uh, yeah, and I actually would love to pull Zach into the conversation again too. But
Yeah.
in the first place, Todd says, I've seen it meaning cultural sleep, right? Just yes, okay. I've seen cultural sleep in the change in music, lack of dynamic range, an emphasis on hooks to the exclusion of all other uh, parts of melody, rhythm reduced to almost nothing. The machine has destroyed popular music. Information,
Information.
information-free novelty. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that it's novelty because when you know where everything is going, it's not new.
Yeah. I mean, there are things that are pretty, algorithms are used to suggest new music to us on Spotify and Pandora or whatever, meaning that everything starts to sound the same, and that's by design.
Yeah,
Yes.
what I meant there was there's enough change in the thing. They take the same elements and mix them up just enough to keep the listener slightly stimulated.
Got it.
So
Yeah.
there's the appearance of change, the appearance of the unpredicted, but it's a counterfeit.
Mm,
Yeah. The first time that I really got clear on that was when I was living in Tanzania. There were basically two kinds of contemporary music there. There was what was called bongo flava, which is exactly what you're describing. It took elements of American hip hop and rap and codified them into little parts that you could put together and make different songs, a lot of auto tune. And it was totally commercial, completely meaningless. Um, and then you had Tanzanian hip hop, which was actually centered in the town that I lived, which was something totally different, spontaneous, uh, entirely new, nothing like it anywhere else in the world for how it was produced. And it was interesting to see the war between these two musical genres.
Yeah. Ian offers that how do you pronounce that name? Do you want to just go on unmuted and
Yeah, tell us, Ian. Rick Beato? Don't know him.
seems you're muted.
I was unmuted and wasn't pressing.
Yeah, I know how that happened.
Uh, yeah, Rick Beato.
Yeah.
He's a very accomplished musician. He's got tons of videos on his channel that explore in depth all kinds of material. But it's something that uh, he has been commenting on about sort of what has destroyed the industry over the last 10 years or so. And exactly basically what Todd was saying. But it's worth checking out. For anybody who's interested in music, it's worth checking out his channel.
Yeah, so that's Rick, Rick, and his last name is Beato, Beato. And Aaron concurs that it's a great channel. So, yeah, I can see myself checking that out later. Mhm. Thanks, guys. So, that's a great real world example of the system taking advantage of this capacity of ours to just go to sleep. And who benefits from that? Who do we think benefits from that?
The machine benefits from that.
Mm,
Maya benefits from it.
Yeah, and specifically within the machine corporations.
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's one of the interesting things about Taylor Swift is how successfully, I mean, she's become a billionaire in her own right, but part of getting there was essentially taking on the corporations and getting back control over her own music.
Yeah. And we can certainly handle that for sure. All right. Thanks, Ian, Todd, and Aaron.
Now, we were going to bother Zach again,
I
right?
wanted to bother Zach because Zach said, we've gone past sleep and started dreaming ourself inside our devices. Would you like to share more about that,
Yeah,
Zach?
I think I know what you mean, but please expand.
So, because when we talk about being asleep, the thing that's asleep is, let's consider that's the self. And we've outsourced that to our devices over the past 20 plus years to the point of now, if, you know, the thought experiment or the experiment that Mushak was referring to, like, let's not fast from devices, you know, like once a week. I used to do that actually weekly
Mm.
for 2 years. And then I realized that I started losing friends by the bucket. And I was like, okay, this is actually not the proper way to do it because mentally I was much better. Things were much smoother. The machine was well oiled, but I did not have that type of um, interactions that were created by the machine. Um, and so when I say the self inside our devices, let's like for example, like most of our well, for me, for example, most of my family and friends connections are done through some form of device, right?
Hmm.
And so like the entirety of the human self gets boiled down to just an information interaction, right? And so when we do that enough, it's almost like too late to go back. The only way to go back is, well, for me as an immigrant, for example, the only way to go back is not be an immigrant. The only way to go back is to break my digital network and to focus solely on what I have physically. And so we could definitely say that the entirety of the machine is bad and we don't need it. Or we could say that maybe actually there is an in-between that's slightly healthy. We can use the machine and not be used by it.
Well, we managed to use the telephone and not be used by it for the most part. So I think that, tools are tools. Your smartphone is not inherently evil, though sometimes when I'm trying to make it work correctly, I think it is, but it's not. There are proper ways to use every tool, and there are addictive ways to use the tool. It's like if you smoked one cigarette a month, it probably wouldn't hurt you, but most people can't. But yeah, I think you're right on with that. And the thing is, your essence is not asleep. Your essence is identified with the sleep of the machine. When we say we have taken and put that in our phones, our essence can be identified with the sleep of the phone, with the sleep of the computer, with the sleep of the algorithm. And so that is uh, the thing that one needs to understand and essential to waking up from it. So this boils down to how much do you want to be awake? How much is actual objective perception of reality? How much is that important to you? Because if it's not important to you, um, it's going to be hard to wake up. And this is the problem with this kind of work. People come and they like the idea of waking up. They will talk about waking up. They'll study waking up. Some of them will get PhDs in waking up, but they don't wake up. Munib, you've been so quiet.
I've been loving the conversation and how everyone touched on different points. For me, it seems like, at first it seemed like a dopamine detox kind of thing, which I tried before. But with the essential tools now, like without the three tools, I think we are left in the where we're doomed to repeat ourselves. So I
Mm.
think that will be a good experiment to try. I'm excited to do the fasting thing with the phone and with the internet, with everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, like as it's a sprint, as it's a marathon and not a sprint, I'll just do that
Yes.
for 1 day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And also, I've been thinking about the desire to wake up. Um, does it have to be in a way that you're tired of how you've been living, kind of thing, and
Yeah,
then
it kind of does.
yeah, like
It
repeating the
helps.
same thing again and again, and now like
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
that is actually for us the first fana. The first fana is looking at your life in the world and going, I don't want this. I'm disgusted with this.
yep, and it's the same thing looping again and again. That's what is
Yeah.
Yeah. The moment you notice that and you're like, I am contributing greatly to my own problems. Oh my God, what can I do about that? Yeah. So you mentioned the word fana. By that we mean in common parlance, annihilation.
Yeah. And they say that the first fana is not a true fana, but it is the first step.
It's a door opener.
Yeah.
You haven't stepped through the door yet, but the door has opened up for you.
Yusuf, talk to us.
Wrong button. Yeah. A question, actually. How can one fire up that desire to be awake? And is there any hazards on the way?
There are
Because,
thousands of hazards on the way.
yeah, I can imagine that.
Most of the hazards are the fact that culture is designed to keep you asleep. And if you are not careful as you wake up, culture has its ways of isolating infectious bodies. And an awake person is an infectious body.
Yep. I was going to use the word alienation.
Yeah. But it's more than that. History
And
is full of culture killing off awakened people. It just is. I hate to say it. I mean, from Socrates on up.
Yep.
but that fact can make someone to be an enemy of the system, and being an enemy of the system can be also some kind of another kind of identification.
Yes.
So
It can become that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you make an identity out of being, some kind of iconoclast or rebel.
Yeah, we see
yeah,
plenty of that, but that's just another form of the sleep of the machine, what I like to call the loyal opposition.
Yep.
yeah.
They're just as asleep as everything else, but they look like they're rebels.
So the idea is not becoming an enemy of the system or the culture, but to learn how to live in that culture or system, and at the same time, how to stay awake.
Yes. Kawat Taranjuman.
Yeah,
I mean, I personally think it can look like something more overt, but it's that identification factor. And there's a whole spectrum through which being awake can be expressed in terms of how visible you want to be. That comes down to the amount of risk you're willing to take on and how the impact you want to have. Are you awake for your family? Are you trying to find ways to give them a full life and be there for them, which would require you to do things that are self-preservational so that you can be there for them? Or is this more a larger scale thing where you can basically commit to a self-sacrifice, an awake self-sacrifice to make an impression on the culture at large? That's not something I recommend. That's not what we're
yeah.
striving for here. But it is an option. Will it have the impact that you intend? You can't guarantee that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Our
it is.
basic method is to be like a smart virus. A smart virus will inhabit a system and not trip off the immune response.
That's our strategy.
Yeah.
That's our preference.
But this is some kind of outcome, isn't it? Uh, I don't start with the intention of being that kind of virus for the culture. and have some influence on that culture. But I start with purely with the intention of self-awakening. And after that, maybe that influence can come uh, maybe automatically. I don't know. But my first intention is about myself, isn't it?
It has to start there, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Because when I start with the other intention, then it can be another hazard on the way.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hope that was helpful, Yusuf. All right, Ed.
Yes. I was thinking that once one has awakened, what does one do?
Chop wood, carry water.
Can you expand on it a little bit more?
You live your life.
Yeah. And you enjoy the show. Or you exit.
Drink water, Aaron says. Is a good idea. So, yeah, people often want, in the early stages, especially when they trip onto this idea of being awake, they want it to be something spectacular. They want it to be something that touches every little nuance of their lives 24/7. They've struck the jackpot on enlightenment, and the heavens open up and light shines from their eyes upon the world.
And everybody knows that they're the man or the woman.
Yeah. And that they're hot shit. And
Yeah.
all of that is sleep. All of that desiring, that particular kind of desiring to be seen as the enlightened one,
Hmm.
that is more sleep nonsense.
Yeah. My idea of a good day of awake experience is take a walk, see a flower, smile at somebody.
And to be fully present in doing each of those things.
Yeah. And hang out with Noor a lot.
Hmm.
She's a lot of fun.
I'm pretty cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're pretty cool.
Yeah. Todd observes people often asked Suzuki Roshi, I want to be enlightened. He replied, okay, but you probably won't like it. There's a lot of truth to that. What
Yeah.
the ego wants doesn't look anything like true awakening. True awakening looks just like your regular life, only everything is different, only everything is the same.
I'm not going to say it's not sparkly. It can
Yes,
allow
occasionally,
you
yeah,
to
occasionally it
experience
sparkles.
sparkliness,
Yeah.
but you're not suddenly going to have it all easy. You're not suddenly, like I said, going to be beheld as the anointed one. Most people aren't even going to notice.
Yeah, most truly awakened beings are completely invisible to the world because they've worked out the whole virus thing. Do not stimulate the immune response.
So if anyone has this itch within them to be witnessed as awake, know that that is the influence of sleep. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Own that.
And it's useful for you because then when somebody claims to be something big, like think of all the guys in the States who claim to be Jesus. I am the second coming of Jesus. No, you're not. You're not. Sorry. You're an idiot. You're a crazy person. You're a scam artist. Whatever you are, you're that, but you ain't the second coming. I am the Buddha. No, you're not the Buddha. Truly awake people are themselves, not anything else. And they don't care if you notice. You know, we get trolls on this channel, of course, like every channel, and most of them want to show us, or me particularly, usually, how awake they are or how much more enlightened they are than you. And it's like the act of doing that tells me that you're full of shit
I
because
wish people would figure that out. Like
they
they've
can't figure that
already
out because they
outed
are lost in it.
themselves.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, we get two things. Uh, we get guys who want to prove to me that they know more than I do, which I concede. Yeah, you know more than I do. Go away.
Oh yeah.
And we
So yeah,
and
they
we
talk
get
to
guys
me
who get
like
crushes.
I'm like a child or
Yeah,
someone to be possessed, in the objectifying sort of way. Or they're trying to just like slap Mushtak down, which
yeah.
is it's a pattern that we have noticed.
Oh yeah, it's amusing, but it's nothing new. It's like these guys all think that they are uh, being new and innovative, but I've been watching this pattern for 30 years now.
Yep.
And it's all part of the sleep of the machine. And it's actually part of the machine's immune system. Each of these guys is sort of like a macrophage for sleep.
And he says guys because it is guys.
It's almost all guys. I think
Yep.
out of all of it, there was maybe one person who was presenting as female. I don't know if they actually were.
Yep.
Because one of the places where you find actual uh, a weird form of transsexualism is these guys who pretend to be women when they are trolling on the internet.
Mm. Which is unfortunate for
And
people
weird.
who
Yeah.
are trans and just trying to live. A teacher of mine, says Yusuf, once said, if someone insists on staying asleep, put a blanket on him or her.
Absolutely. It is not your job to wake people up. If they want to be asleep, help them out. Keep them safe. Keep them warm. Don't let them catch cold. Wael, you have also been very, very quiet.
I've been really listening very carefully and have have been reminded of the importance of the passion. And I can, from my experience, it is very, very true. Um, Especially living in a city that has a lot of sleep designed setups. Maya, we have theme parks for Maya here, and you can get various rides according to your budget. Um,
And there
and
are penguins.
Yes, they are penguins, and I'm not even lying. Uh, but in order to be awake, uh, you really, really, I think one of somebody I once knew said, you have to want this like a drowning human wants air. It has to be, you have to be that desperate.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, whatever puts you in that situation, that burning passion, um, has to take precedence above all. For me, it was always just doesn't feel right, and I want to know why. I don't care about the consequence. I just need to know why. I will not rest. I will not sleep until I take a little step towards that. And it's that passion that led me to this school. And it's that passion that took me to India. And inshallah, it'll be the passion that will take me forward. So Yeah, I really appreciate all your contributions to this particular topic tonight, because it really does remind me of of the fuel that gets me to do the practices, that gets me to do al-muhasaba, al-muraqaba, self-observation, because you can't do that as an option. It has to be, I mean, you can try, but I don't know how long it's going to last.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just it reminded me of purpose, of the fuel. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you, Wael, on all points. And I also want to point out that even those of us who feel pretty freaking serious about this, we may have moments where we're like, I just don't feel it today. I just don't. I just don't feel it. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm almost freaking out that I don't feel it today.
Yeah,
Think
and the
about,
answer is you need a treat.
I was gonna say, are you tired? Are you hungry? Are you lonely? Like, really get down to those basic things that you ask a little kid when they're about to have a temper tantrum. And you're like, let's talk. What's wrong? What do you need right now that you're not getting on the most basic level? Think about those things. You are entitled to, as Mushtaq said, a treat.
Yeah,
You don't need to deprive yourself and constantly be doing battle. This is why I say that having downtime from the war, having the stupid TV show, those are the things that give you a chance to recuperate and to recalibrate and to remember why you have been pushing as hard as you have. Why, when you do feel that desire, it feels so strong.
yeah. It is good to remember that every sailor needs shore leave.
Oh
Diva,
man,
you must have been reading my mind because I was about to
me
nag you to talk
too.
to us.
Yeah.
Oh, first of all, I want to say, remember when you were talking about the torture of Lawrence Welk?
Yeah.
You know what I thought about? Pulaski Days is coming up.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah.
Only you would understand. So I was thinking, I'm glad like the last part of the conversation came up, because I just wanted to comment that it's really hard when you're somewhere where people are real religious and you just want to fit in, you know? And it's hard to know how to talk or what to talk about, or so I'm just making that comment, but I've been really
Yeah.
the
And
last part of the conversation was really interesting and meaningful for me.
yeah. The trick with how you fit in is that you reach deep into yourself for compassion for all beings, including Dutch Reformed church members. She lives in the Dutch Reformed ghetto. So as I remember, you're close to John Ball Park, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're actually in the Polish district.
Yes, that's why I said Pulaski Days.
Yeah, yeah, I remember Pulaski days with actually great fondness.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. And some,
Kielbasa and lots of polka.
Mm-hmm.
yes. So hopefully you can find a little
I
bit
just
of
know I let it
positivity in
slip a
that.
couple times at work. You know, I said something about, I don't know, just stuff, and people were like shocked, and I'm like, no, no, you got to bring the conversation in a little, you know. So
Mhm.
so it's all stuff I've been thinking about all week.
Mm. Well, I'm glad that you found this conversation to be
Mhm.
something you could just kind of find support in. That's great. Yeah.
One quick thought, Diva. Have you found Frank's yet? Frank's Meat Market?
Yeah, but I like to buy I don't like Frank's as much as the pasture raised. There's so many farms with I can get like real pasture raised
Oh yeah,
meat.
there's lots of them, Crestwood and
That's
all of that.
that's the best thing about living here is buying everything right from a farm.
Hell, if you can do it, do it. That's
Yeah.
I
awesome.
know. I say we eat like kings here. It's
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 true.
amazing how good the food is.
But Frank's is good for certain things like beef jerky.
Okay, good to know.
And their kielbasa is world renowned.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all everybody goes to Frank's for.
Yeah, it's right by my house.
Nice.
All right. I think that we've covered everything with everyone all at once.
Everything, everywhere, all at once. Hopefully, we've given you some realistic understanding about what it means to combat your own sleep. And enjoy the sparklies when they come.
Yeah.
Don't identify with them.
And
Don't be
bear in mind,
discouraged. What's that, Mishtak?
that everything around you is designed to put you back to sleep.
Yeah.
That is
So,
where the war starts.
mm-hmm. Yep.
So let's switch over to Brady Bunch mode.
Brady Bunch mode. It's so good to see you all again.
Yeah,
I
we
have
missed you guys.
enjoyed this time together. And despite being a little sleep deprived myself, the energy that all of us cultivate together has kept me afloat for the past hour and however many minutes. I enjoyed it so much. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Then
Yeah, we
everybody
can
wave goodbye.
wave to each other, wave to everybody watching on the replay. And actually, I forgot to mention today's Two Talk Sunday, so we will see you again in just a few short hours at 6:30
Yeah,
p.m.
and the
as well.
topic will be um, what is the topic?
Oh my
Full
gosh.
body attention,
There we go.
which is
Yes.
different than full body awareness. And this is kind of a look at what we worked on at the retreat.
Yeah,
So we wanted everybody to have at least a taste of that.
a taste. Even if
A
you couldn't
taste.
be there, being
Yeah.
there was better, as those who are there know. All right, more about that coming this evening. We will talk to you then. Bye,
Okay.
everybody.
Take care. Bye.